Peter Brooks didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. In the polished marble lobby of their condominium building, under the steady red blink of a security camera, he simply stepped aside while Olivia Grant dragged Emma Brooks's suitcase across the floor and tipped it onto its side. Clothes spilled out. A heel snapped. The concierge pretended not to stare. "This isn't your home anymore," Olivia said evenly. Peter said nothing. What neither of them understood, what the deed, the wire transfer, and the county records would later confirm, was that Emma was the only legal owner standing in that room. And the cameras were still recording. If you believe quiet strength can outlast public humiliation, stay with this story until the very end. Before we continue, tell me where you're watching from and your local time. It's always powerful to see how far stories of justice can travel. And if you value dignity, evidence, and truth over noise, consider subscribing so you don't miss what happens next. From the outside, the marriage between Emma Brooks and Peter Brooks had the symmetry people admired. They had been married for 8 years. They lived in a glass and steel condominium tower overlooking the river. They hosted dinners twice a year, once in spring, once before Christmas. They remembered birthdays. They sent thank you cards. There had never been shouting loud enough for neighbors to hear. No police visits, no shattered plates. What they had instead was silence that accumulated in layers. Emma moved through their home the way someone moves through a library, careful, deliberate, aware of structure. She worked as a senior financial analyst for a healthcare consulting firm, the kind of job that required patience with numbers and suspicion toward anything that didn't reconcile. Her desk at home was always neat. Her notebooks were dated. She preferred black ink. She also kept a separate notebook, unlabeled, leather-bound, the color of dark coffee. In it, she recorded things that did not fit into spreadsheets. Peter called her organized. His friends called her steady. Neither word was inaccurate. Peter, on the other hand, thrived in rooms filled with noise. As a regional sales executive for a commercial real estate firm, he understood how to read faces, how to modulate tone, how to turn uncertainty into persuasion. He dressed sharply, laughed easily, and spoke about future projects as if they were already complete. He believed in presentation. When people complimented the condo, Peter would smile and say, "We got lucky with this place." He liked that sentence. It implied instinct, success, timing. Emma never corrected him. 5 years earlier, when the condo had first appeared on the market, it was Emma who had found it. She had been browsing listings late at night, scrolling through floor plans and property disclosures while Peter slept. The unit faced west. Floor-to-ceiling windows, solid HOA reserves, no pending litigation. She had studied the association documents carefully. The down payment had come from money she inherited after her mother passed away. A modest estate carefully invested, grown patiently. Emma had liquidated a portion of a low-risk fund and wired the amount directly into escrow. The wire confirmation email was still archived. Peter had contributed to furnishing the condo. He had chosen the leather sofa. He had insisted on the oversized abstract painting above the dining table. He paid a larger share of the utility bills that first year proudly. When closing day arrived, Emma signed first. The deed listed one name, Emma Brooks. She had read it twice before sliding the pen back. Peter had not asked to read it. In the months that followed, he began referring to it as my place when speaking to colleagues. Emma had heard him the first time he said it. She had been in the kitchen rinsing wine glasses. She paused, water running over her fingers, listening to him laugh into his phone. "You've got to come see my place sometime," he'd said. She dried her hands and wrote the date in her leather notebook. Not as accusation, as record. The shift in their marriage did not arrive with a single betrayal. It began as recalibration. Peter's travel increased. More client dinners, more conferences. Emma understood ambition. She admired drive. What she noticed instead was inconsistency. He would mention a 2-night trip, then return after 3. He would claim exhaustion, then answer emails past midnight with sudden energy. Once she asked casually, "How was Denver?" He hesitated before answering, just a second too long. "Fine," he said, "same as always." Emma smiled. She did not mention that his calendar had shown San Diego. The shared iPad on their kitchen counter became an unintentional witness. They used it for grocery lists, streaming shows, the occasional FaceTime call with Peter's sister in Ohio. It also synchronized certain notifications. One evening, while Emma was adding almond milk to the digital shopping list, a preview banner slid down from the top of the screen. "Can't wait to see you tonight." Olivia, Emma's thumb hovered above the glass. She did not open the message. Instead, she noted the time 7:42 p.m. Peter was in the shower. When he emerged, towel slung around his waist, he kissed the top of her head. "Late meeting," he said. Emma nodded. In her leather notebook, she wrote, "Late meeting, 7:42 p.m. She did not confront him, not because she was afraid, not because she was weak, but because confrontation without evidence is merely noise. And Emma had no interest in noise. Peter began to treat the condo less like a shared sanctuary and more like a hotel suite. He would come and go with increasing entitlement. When she asked if he would be home for dinner, he responded as though she were requesting permission instead of clarity. "Why do you need to know?" he asked, once shrugging into a blazer. "For planning," she replied. He exhaled sharply. "You're overthinking things." Perhaps she was. But overthinking had built her career. On weekends, they still attended social gatherings. At a neighbor's birthday party in the building's rooftop lounge, Peter stood with a drink in hand, laughing at a joke Emma hadn't heard. When she approached, the conversation thinned. One of the guests, a woman Emma vaguely recognized from the 12th floor, said lightly, "Peter talks about this place like he built it himself." Peter grinned. Well, someone had to pick it. Emma met the woman's eyes and smiled politely. Later that night, she wrote "Rooftop Lounge." Witness woman blonde, 12th floor. Statement reownership. She did not yet know why she was cataloging these moments so carefully, only that something in her instinct told her that narrative mattered, that the way a story was told in public could one day collide with the way it was documented in private. The first time Peter returned home, smelling faintly of unfamiliar perfume, Emma noticed immediately. It was floral, sharper than anything she owned. He moved past her quickly, setting his briefcase down. "Long day," he muttered. She nodded and returned to her laptop. In the bathroom mirror later, she examined her own reflection with clinical calm. There was no visible change, no dramatic unraveling, just awareness. She did not cry. She did not accuse. She opened her email and created a new folder titled Personal. Then she began forwarding confirmations that had surfaced accidentally through shared devices. Hotel bookings, dinner reservations, flight itineraries that did not match the cities he described. Each file was labeled with date and time. Peter continued speaking in plural. Our condo, our future, our plans. Emma continued listening. What Peter did not understand, what he had never needed to understand, was that Emma's strength had always been quiet. She did not compete for volume. She did not demand validation. She gathered facts. The condo remained pristine. The hardwood floors gleamed. The windows reflected sunsets in copper and gold. From a distance, nothing appeared broken. But beneath the surface, two parallel realities were forming. In one, Peter believed he controlled the narrative. He believed that ownership followed confidence. That repetition created truth. That if he spoke something often enough, it would become his. In the other, Emma prepared. She knew the exact amount of the original wire transfer. She knew the HOA account number. She knew which attorney had overseen closing. She knew where the certified copy of the deed was stored. And she knew something else. People who underestimate paperwork often underestimate consequences. By the time Olivia Grant's name appeared a second time on the kitchen iPad, Emma had already stopped wondering whether there was another woman. She was no longer asking if. She was measuring when. And she was patient. Because Emma Brooks understood something Peter never had. Power does not announce itself. It waits. Olivia Grant entered Peter's life the way certain people do, gradually, plausibly wrapped in professional language. She worked in the marketing division of Peter's firm. 29, efficient, observant. The kind of woman who remembered details about clients' children and used them at precisely the right moment. She understood presentation almost as well as Peter did. The first time Emma heard her name spoken aloud, it was casual. "Olivia from marketing pulled together that proposal I told you about," Peter said over dinner one night, scrolling through his phone. "Smart, very sharp." Emma passed him the salt. "That's good." Peter continued, unaware that Emma was listening not to his praise, but to the cadence of it. It carried admiration layered with something softer. 3 weeks later, Olivia appeared in a photo on the company's social media page. A networking mixer at a downtown rooftop bar. Peter stood beside her. Both of them angled slightly toward each other in a way that suggested familiarity rather than coincidence. Emma studied the image longer than necessary, not jealousy, geometry. Bodies lean towards what they prioritize. That night, she opened her leather notebook. Olivia Grant, marketing, rooftop event, 8:17 p.m., physical proximity notable. She closed the book gently. The transition from colleague to presence was subtle. Olivia's name surfaced more often in conversation. Peter referenced her insights, her humor, her drive. He began defending her in abstract discussions about office politics. "You wouldn't understand how competitive it is," he told Emma once. Olivia's had to fight twice as hard. Emma tilted her head slightly. "I didn't realize you were her advocate." He laughed. "It's not like that." It was not yet like that. But it was moving. The shared iPad continued to serve as silent intermediary. Notifications appeared sporadically, never explicit, never obscene. Just familiarity layered over time. "Made it home. You left your charger in my car. Tomorrow will be easier." Emma never opened the threads directly. She did not need to. Preview banners were enough. Dates and timestamps were enough. One evening, Peter announced he would be attending a strategy session out of town. 2 nights, where Emma asked, slicing vegetables with steady hands. "Denver," he replied without looking up. Emma nodded. Later, when the airline confirmation surfaced through the synced email account, the destination read San Diego. She compared departure times, cross-checked return flights, saved the PDF, uploaded it to cloud storage, labeled the file, San Diego _conflicting statement _ Denver claim. She did not confront him when he returned. She asked instead, "Did the altitude bother you?" Peter blinked. "What, in Denver?" "Oh, no, it was fine." Emma smiled faintly. "Good." He kissed her cheek and walked toward the bedroom. In the quiet that followed, Emma felt something settle inside her. Not rage, not heartbreak, resolution. Olivia's presence soon crossed into physical space. The first time Emma saw her in person was accidental. She had stopped by Peter's office unannounced to drop off a document he had forgotten. The reception area buzzed with low conversation and keyboard clicks. Olivia stood near the glass conference room laughing at something Peter had said. Her hand briefly touched his arm, an intimate gesture disguised as casual emphasis. Emma observed from a distance. Olivia was attractive in a deliberate way. Structured blazer, minimal jewelry, confident posture. She looked like someone accustomed to being welcomed. Peter noticed Emma a second too late. His smile faltered before reforming. "Hey," he said, stepping forward. "You didn't tell me you were coming." "I was nearby," Emma replied evenly. She handed him the folder. "You'll need this for the client." Olivia approached with a polite smile. "You must be Emma," she said warmly. "I've heard so much about you." Emma met her gaze steadily. "I'm sure." The handshake between them lasted half a second longer than necessary, long enough for both women to assess the other. Olivia's grip was firm, her eyes calculating. Emma released first. That night in her notebook, met Olivia. Office, 3:12 p.m. Observations, confident, composed, invested, Peter grew bolder as weeks passed. He no longer guarded his phone as carefully. Familiarity breeds complacency. Complacency invites exposure. On a Thursday evening, Emma returned home earlier than expected. The condo was quiet, lights dimmed except for the kitchen. She heard laughter from the balcony. Peter and Olivia stood outside, wine glasses and hand city lights reflecting off the glass panels. Emma did not freeze. She did not gasp. She stepped onto the balcony. Peter turned sharply. "Emma, this is just a work discussion," she finished calmly. Olivia smiled. "I was just leaving." She walked past Emma with measured grace, offering a soft, almost sympathetic glance. After the door closed, silence expanded between husband and wife. "You could have told me," Emma said quietly. "It's not what you think," Peter insisted. "We were brainstorming." At 9:30 at night, he exhaled sharply. "You're reading into things." Perhaps. But Emma had stopped relying on interpretation. She relied on accumulation. After Olivia left, Emma walked through the condo slowly. A second wine glass rested in the sink. A faint trace of perfume lingered in the hallway. She opened the linen closet and noted that a folded throw blanket had been moved. The indentation on the sofa cushion remained visible. She did not touch it. Instead, she retrieved her phone and photographed the living room. The balcony. The timestamp displayed at the top of the image. Documentation. Peter followed her into the bedroom. "Are you seriously taking pictures?" he demanded. "Yes," Emma answered without raising her voice. "Of what? Of what is?" He stared at her as if she had spoken another language. "You're being dramatic." Emma met his eyes. "No," she said softly. "I'm being precise." Peter slept poorly that night. Emma slept soundly. Over the next month, Olivia's visits increased. Sometimes she arrived openly, sometimes under the guise of work. Peter stopped offering explanations altogether. "She's staying over," he said once, already opening the guest bedroom door. Emma observed the subtle shift in phrasing. Staying over, not visiting. She wrote it down. The concierge downstairs began greeting Olivia by name. Packages addressed to Olivia Grant occasionally appeared at the front desk. Emma collected one of them herself. "I'll take that," she said calmly, when the concierge hesitated. Upstairs, she placed the unopened package on the kitchen island. Peter glanced at it, then at her. "It's just temporary," he said. Emma did not ask what it referred to. Temporary arrangements often assume permanence when unchallenged. What Peter failed to grasp, what Olivia did not yet consider, was that Emma's silence was not surrender. It was strategy. Each email confirmation, each bank statement, each security camera angle in the hallway. Emma began mapping them in her mind, like coordinates. She was not reacting to betrayal. She was preparing for consequence. And somewhere between shared dinners and shared lies, Peter had convinced himself that confidence equaled control. He had not read the deed. He had not questioned the wire transfer. He had not imagined a future where paperwork could speak louder than he ever had. Olivia believed proximity meant ownership. Peter believed assertion meant authority. Emma believed in evidence. By the time Olivia left her second toothbrush in the bathroom cabinet, Emma had already scheduled a consultation. She did not announce it. She did not threaten. She simply chose a date. Because while Peter and Olivia were building a narrative inside the condo's walls, Emma was building something else entirely. A record. And records, unlike feelings, endure. The condominium had never been an impulse purchase. Emma Brooks did not believe in impulse purchases, especially not ones that required escrow accounts inspections and six-figure transfers. 5 years earlier, when the listing first appeared online, she had studied it the way she studied quarterly reports, line by line, footnote by footnote. The building was 12 years old. Financial reserves were healthy. No pending structural litigation. The Homeowners Association minutes showed routine disagreements about landscaping and parking, nothing more. Peter had fallen in love with the windows. Emma had fallen in love with the numbers. The down payment came from an inheritance Emma had received after her mother's death, a quiet sum built from decades of cautious investing. Her mother had never owned property in a high-rise tower, never stood on a balcony overlooking a river. She had believed instead in savings accounts and municipal bonds. Security first, she used to say. When the probate process closed, Emma transferred a portion of that inheritance into a dedicated account. She never mixed it with their joint checking. She never referred to it casually. On the morning of the wire transfer, she sat at her desk and double-checked every digit of the routing number before clicking confirm. The confirmation email arrived at 9:14 a.m. She printed it. At closing, the title, Company Representative, slid the deed across the polished table. Emma read every line. She noticed the legal description of the unit, the lot number, the square footage, the storage locker in the basement garage. Owner, Emma Brooks. Peter had skimmed. "Looks good," he said, lightly signing his own documents related to mortgage responsibility and tax acknowledgments. He did not notice that his name did not appear on the title itself. The mortgage application had required his income. The deed had not required his ownership. Emma understood the distinction. She had researched it thoroughly before proceeding. Separate property, asset acquired with inherited funds, title in sole name. She did not explain this to Peter in detail. When he asked if everything was handled, she said yes. She had not lied. She had simply not elaborated. In the years that followed, the condo became backdrop to their life together. They hosted dinners at the long oak table Peter insisted on buying. They assembled bookshelves. They argued mildly about where to hang artwork. Peter paid part of the monthly mortgage from their joint account. Emma paid the HOA fees directly from her personal account, tied to the original inheritance fund. It was cleaner that way. He never questioned the arrangement. Over time, Peter's language shifted subtly. "My building," he said once when inviting a colleague over. Emma heard it from the hallway. She did not interrupt. Ownership, she knew, was not defined by pronouns. It was defined by paper. As Olivia Grant's presence grew inside the condo walls, Emma found herself revisiting the original purchase documents. Not out of doubt, but out of clarity. One evening, while Peter claimed to be working late, Emma retrieved the fireproof lockbox from the back of her closet. Inside were neatly organized folders, deed copy escrow statements, HOA registration property tax assessments. She spread them across the dining table. The wire transfer statement bore her name alone. The cashier's check for closing costs bore her signature. The recorded deed from the county clerk's office confirmed sole ownership. She read each page again, not because she needed reassurance, because repetition solidifies resolve. In the kitchen, her phone vibrated. A notification from the building's residence portal, annual HOA meeting scheduled next month. Emma logged in using her credentials. Under primary owner, her name appeared. No co-owner listed. She exhaled slowly. Upstairs in the guest bedroom, now increasingly occupied by Olivia's belongings, Peter and Olivia were laughing softly. The sound traveled through the hallway, down the staircase, into the quiet living room, where Emma sat with paperwork illuminated under warm light. The contrast did not escape her. Two realities in one space. Peter emerged from the bedroom, later adjusting his sleeves. "You're still up?" he asked, surprised to see the document spread before her. "I wanted to review something," Emma replied evenly. He glanced at the papers but did not step closer. Legal text bored him. It always had. "You and your paperwork," he said with a half-smile. "Relax, Em. It's just a condo. Just a condo." The phrase lingered after he walked away. For Peter, the condo represented lifestyle status, a view proximity to downtown. For Emma, it represented structure, security, leverage proof. She returned the documents to their folders and replaced them in the lockbox. The following week, a minor incident further clarified matters. A maintenance notice arrived from the HOA regarding balcony inspections. Access to each unit would be coordinated with the owner on record. Peter opened the envelope first. "Inspection next Tuesday," he called out casually. "I'll handle it." Emma looked up from her laptop. "They'll contact the owner directly," she said. He waved a hand dismissively. "That's us." Later that afternoon, Emma received an email addressed specifically to her. "Dear Miss Brooks, as the registered owner of Unit 18B, please confirm your availability for the scheduled balcony inspection." She read the message twice. Then she forwarded it to a private folder and replied with confirmation. Peter never knew the email existed. He did not attend the inspection. Emma did. The building manager, a middle-aged woman named Carol Whitman, greeted her warmly at the door. "Thank you for being so responsive," Carol said as she stepped onto the balcony with the inspector. "We appreciate owners who stay on top of these things. Owner." Emma nodded politely. Inside the condo, Olivia sat on the couch, scrolling through her phone, temporarily occupying a space she did not legally inhabit. She glanced up as the inspector passed through. "Oh," Olivia said lightly. "I didn't realize they needed to check anything." Emma met her gaze. "They coordinate with the owner," she replied calmly. Olivia smiled thinly. Of course. The word carried assumption. But assumption, Emma knew, was not documentation. As days passed, Olivia's belongings expanded: shoes near the entryway, skincare products in the master bathroom, a framed photo discreetly placed on the bedside table. Peter behaved as though transition were inevitable, as though Emma would eventually step aside without friction. He mistook composure for concession. Late one night, after Peter had fallen asleep, Emma sat alone in the living room with her laptop open. She began creating a secure digital archive. Scanned copies of the deed, bank statements highlighting the inheritance transfer, HOA correspondence, property tax payments from her individual account. She encrypted the folder. Then she drafted an email not yet sent to an attorney she had researched earlier that week. Subject: consultation regarding property and marital assets. She did not fill in the body. Not yet. Preparation did not require urgency. It required timing. Upstairs, Peter stirred in his sleep, unaware that the foundation he believed he stood on was not his to claim. Olivia believed proximity equaled permanence. Peter believed assertion equaled authority. Emma believed in sequence, acquisition, documentation, preservation. She closed her laptop and walked to the window. The city lights shimmered against the dark water below. Reflections layered over reflections. From the outside, the condo still appeared intact, and a sleek rectangle of illuminated glass among dozens of others. Inside, however, something had shifted irrevocably. Peter and Olivia were building a future in imagination. Emma was building a case in reality. And the difference between those two things would in time become impossible to ignore. Because deeds do not bend to confidence. They wait in file cabinets and county archives, quiet and exact, until someone needs them to speak. Emma Brooks understood that. Peter did not. Not yet. The first public humiliation did not arrive with shouting. It arrived dressed in courtesy. The company's annual spring reception was held in the ballroom of a downtown hotel. Crystal chandeliers mirrored walls, waiters balancing trays of champagne. Peter had insisted they attend. "It's important," he said. "Visibility matters." Emma agreed. Visibility always mattered. The question was to whom. She wore a navy dress, structured, understated, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back. She understood rooms like this, polite, evaluative, layered with quiet hierarchies. Peter moved easily through the crowd, shaking hands, clasping shoulders, laughing at stories that were not especially funny. Emma followed half a step behind, smiling when introduced, nodding when appropriate. For the first hour, nothing unusual happened. Then Olivia Grant entered the ballroom. She did not arrive alone. She arrived accompanied by attention, a fitted ivory dress, confident stride, the kind of smile calibrated for cameras and corner tables alike. Peter saw her before Emma did. His posture shifted almost imperceptibly. Shoulders straightening, chin lifting expression, sharpening with something close to anticipation. "Excuse me," he murmured, stepping away from Emma mid-conversation. Emma turned and followed the direction of his gaze. Olivia saw he approached with practiced warmth. "Peter," she said, touching his arm lightly. "I wasn't sure you'd made it." "I wouldn't miss this," he replied. The words hovered between them, suggestive without being explicit. Emma closed the small distance separating them. Olivia Peter said, his tone slightly too enthusiastic. "You remember my wife, Emma?" Of course she remembered. Olivia's smile widened. "Emma, it's so good to see you again." Again, as if familiarity were already established. Emma extended her hand calmly. "Good evening." For a moment, the three of them stood in a triangle of polite tension. Conversations around them continued, unaware of the recalibration taking place within this smaller orbit. A senior partner from Peter's firm approached, champagne glass in hand. "There you are," he said to Peter. "And you must be Emma. We've heard about you." He turned slightly toward Olivia. "And Olivia, excellent work on that lakeside proposal." Olivia inclined her head modestly. "Thank you." Peter placed a hand at the small of Olivia's back, briefly, casually, but long enough. Emma noticed. So did the senior partner. The partner chuckled. "Well, it looks like you two are inseparable lately." A joke, light, public. Peter laughed. "We've been putting in the hours." Emma felt the words settle like dust. Inseparable. Hours. She smiled faintly and took a slow sip of champagne. The conversation shifted toward quarterly targets and expansion plans. Emma stood beside Peter, present but increasingly peripheral. At one point, the senior partner turned to Emma and said almost as an afterthought, "Peter talks about this condo of yours like it's the crown jewel of the skyline." Peter grinned. "It's a great place." The partner continued, "Must be nice to own something like that at your age." Peter didn't hesitate. "It took some work," he replied smoothly. "But yeah, it's mine." The word landed cleanly. Mine. Olivia glanced at him with something resembling admiration. Emma did not interrupt. She did not correct. Instead, she observed who had heard the statement. The senior partner, two colleagues, a woman from marketing standing slightly behind Olivia. Witnesses. She committed their faces to memory. Later, near the bar, Olivia leaned closer to Peter, lowering her voice, but not enough. "You really did choose well," she said. "That view is unbelievable." Peter smiled. "You should see it at night." Emma stood 3 feet away, invisible. When the band began playing, Peter extended his hand not to his wife. "To celebrate the quarter," he said lightly to Olivia. Olivia hesitated just long enough to imply restraint, then accepted. Emma watched them move toward the dance floor. The music was soft, unobtrusive. Their proximity was not. Hands placed comfortably, laughter shared at close range, a familiarity no longer disguised as professional. Emma set her empty glass down. She walked toward the balcony doors of the ballroom, stepping into the cool night air. The city lights below mirrored the ones outside her own condo windows. For a moment, she allowed herself stillness. Not to cry, to calibrate. Humiliation in private can be dismissed. Humiliation in public leaves residue. She replayed Peter's words. "It's mine." The arrogance in the statement was not loud. It was effortless. And that Emma understood was what made it dangerous. Peter had begun believing his own narrative. Ownership through repetition, authority through assumption. When she returned inside, the dance had ended. Olivia stood near the bar again, laughing with colleagues. Peter rejoined Emma with a casual expression. "Sorry," he said. "Didn't want to make it awkward." Emma regarded him steadily. "You didn't." He studied her face, perhaps searching for anger, tears, accusation. He found none. "You're overthinking this," he added almost reflexively. Emma tilted her head slightly. "I haven't said anything." Peter exhaled, irritation flickering. "Exactly." The drive home was quiet. In the condo's elevator, the mirrored walls reflected the distance between them more clearly than any argument could. Peter checked his phone. Emma watched the floor numbers rise. When they stepped into the unit, the silence thickened. Peter removed his jacket and tossed it onto the chair. It was just a dance, he said, as though continuing a conversation Emma had not initiated. I know, she replied. And the condo thing, you're being sensitive. Emma turned toward him fully now. Sensitive about what? He hesitated. You know, the mind comment. She held his gaze. Are you correcting it? She asked quietly. Peter's jaw tightened. It's our place. Emma nodded once. Of course. She walked past him and into the bedroom. Later that night, while Peter slept, Emma sat at her desk and opened the leather notebook. Spring reception. 9:37 p.m. statement. It's mine. Witnesses senior partner Michael Davenport. 2 associates faces recognizable marketing staff present. IANCL, Olivia Grant. She underlined the phrase. Then she opened her laptop and accessed the building's residence portal. She downloaded the most recent ownership statement and saved it to her encrypted folder. Not because Peter's comment had legal weight, but because pattern matters. Public claims establish intent. Intent shapes consequence. The next morning, Peter left early, humming faintly the previous night already minimized in his mind. Emma stood by the window after he left, watching the city awaken. Humiliation had not broken her. It had clarified her. She no longer questioned whether the marriage could be repaired. That question required mutual truth. Peter was constructing fiction instead. Emma's role was no longer to preserve comfort. It was to preserve evidence. She retrieved the fireproof lockbox once more and removed a certified copy of the deed. She scanned it at high resolution and uploaded it to her secure archive. Then she drafted the body of the email to the attorney she had researched weeks earlier. Subject: consultation regarding property and marital assets. Dear Mr. Harper, I would like to schedule a confidential consultation regarding sole ownership of a condominium property acquired with inherited funds and recent developments that may constitute misrepresentation and potential unlawful eviction. She paused only briefly before adding, I have documentation. She saved the draft. Outside, the city moved forward as it always did, unaware of the recalibrations happening inside one unit on the 18th floor. Peter believed humiliation was something Emma would absorb quietly. He was right. He simply misunderstood what she would do with it. The email reply from Daniel Harper arrived the following morning at 8:12 a.m. Mr. Harper was available Thursday at 3:30 p.m. confidential consultation. Please bring any relevant documentation. Emma read the message twice, then closed her laptop. Across the kitchen island, Peter scrolled through his phone while sipping coffee. You're quiet, he observed without looking up. I'm working, she replied. He nodded absently. The distance between them had grown measurable, not in miles, but in documentation. Emma began organizing what she would bring to the consultation. She did not rush. Precision required clarity. First, the deed certified copy and digital scan. Second, the wire transfer confirmation, showing the down payment drawn exclusively from her inherited funds. Third, the escrow settlement statement detailing the allocation of costs. Fourth, HOA correspondence listing her as sole registered owner. She placed each document into a slim black folder. Then, she turned her attention to the digital evidence. The shared iPad remained on the kitchen counter, its notifications unpredictable but revealing. Emma had adjusted the settings weeks earlier so previews would remain visible longer. Not invasive, simply observant. That afternoon, as Peter stepped into the shower before leaving for work, a banner slid down the screen. Last night was worth it. Olivia Emma did not open the thread. She photographed the notification with her phone, ensuring the timestamp and battery percentage were visible in the image. Documentation was strongest when it included context. She'd already created a secure cloud folder titled Personal Archive Property. Within it, she organized subfolders: ownership, financial, communications, public incidents. The structure calmed her. Later that evening, Peter announced another overnight trip. "Client emergency," he said while packing. "Where?" Emma asked. "Denver again." She nodded. After he left, Emma opened the airline portal using the confirmation number that had flashed briefly in a previous notification. She did not log into his account. She searched publicly by reference code that had appeared in plain view. San Diego. Again. She saved the itinerary as a PDF. Then she accessed their joint bank account. The pattern had become clearer over the past month. Small, consistent charges that aligned with Olivia's visits and Peter's alleged business trips. Boutique hotel deposits, restaurant reservations for two, a high-end spa charge from a coastal resort. Emma exported the last 6 months of statements into a spreadsheet. She categorized expenditures by merchant type and date. The numbers told a quieter story than confrontation ever could have. $3,427 over 2 months. She cross-referenced dates with her leather notebook entries. Consistency is persuasive, she thought. The next morning, she visited the condo building's management office under the pretense of clarifying a parking permit issue. Carol Whitman greeted her with her usual efficiency. "Everything all right with the unit?" Carol asked. "Yes," Emma replied calmly. "I just wanted to confirm access records for the garage and elevator key fobs," Carol typed briefly. "You currently have 2 registered fobs under your unit, both authorized under your name." Emma noted the phrasing. "Is it possible to see entry logs for the past 30 days?" she asked. Carol hesitated slightly. "We can provide summaries if there's a concern. Routine documentation," Emma said evenly. Carol printed a summary report listing key fob activity dates and times of entry. Emma scanned the list. Several late-night entries when Peter claimed to be out of town. She thanked Carol and folded the report carefully into her folder. That evening, Olivia arrived openly, no longer pretending to be incidental. She carried a garment bag and a small suitcase. "I'll just put these in the guest room," she said lightly, brushing past Emma. Peter avoided eye contact. Emma stood in the living room, observing the transfer of belongings into a space she legally owned. "Is this temporary?" Emma asked calmly. Peter sighed, irritation surfacing. "We've talked about space," he said. "Olivia needs somewhere convenient for work." "We," Emma repeated quietly. He did not answer directly. Instead, he moved Olivia's suitcase upstairs. Emma waited until she heard the guest bedroom door close before retrieving her phone. She photographed the suitcase positioned beside the bed, the garment bag hanging in the closet, the new toothbrush placed beside Peter's. Each image included a timestamp. When Peter returned downstairs, he found her standing near the dining table. "You're documenting again," he said sharply. "Yes. This is obsessive. It's factual." He ran a hand through his hair. "You're acting like you're building a case." Emma held his gaze. "I am building a record." Peter laughed, though there was no humor in it. For what Emma did not answer, because explanation would imply negotiation. Instead, she walked to her desk and opened her laptop. That night, she added the building access log to her digital archive. She labeled it clearly access_summary_keyfob_unit 18. B_last 30 days. Then she began drafting a timeline document listing events chronologically March 14th. First overnight Denver trip, airline San Diego. March 29th, Olivia overnight stay in condo. April 3rd, public claim of ownership at company reception. April 10th, key fob entry at 1:12 a.m. while Peter listed as out of state. Each entry referenced supporting documentation stored in corresponding folders. Emma understood something Peter did not. Legal strength often lies not in one dramatic moment, but in consistent pattern. Thursday afternoon arrived. Emma entered Daniel Harper's office building precisely at 3:25 p.m. She wore the same navy dress she had worn to the reception, structured, controlled. Daniel Harper was in his early 40s. composed with the steady demeanor of someone accustomed to unraveling complex domestic disputes. "Miss Brooks," he said, extending his hand, "please have a seat." Emma placed the black folder on his desk and began speaking without embellishment. "The condominium is solely titled in my name," she said. "Acquired with inherited funds, my husband has recently begun representing himself publicly as owner and has introduced a third party into the property." Daniel listened carefully. "Is there evidence of misappropriation of marital funds?" he asked. "Yes," Emma replied, sliding forward printed bank statements. He reviewed the documents in silence. "And you believe he may attempt to remove you from the property?" he asked. Emma considered the question. "I believe he believes he has that authority," she said. Daniel leaned back slightly. "He does not," he replied calmly. Emma felt no surge of triumph, only confirmation. "You'll want to preserve all evidence," Daniel continued. "Communications, financial records, building access logs. Do not engage in confrontational exchanges without documentation. If there is any attempt at unlawful eviction, we will respond immediately." Emma nodded. "I've already begun preserving material," she said. "I can see that," Daniel replied, glancing at the organized folders. He paused. "You've been patient." "Yes." "Are you prepared for escalation?" Emma met his gaze evenly. "Yes." When she returned to the condo that evening, Peter and Olivia were on the balcony again, glasses of wine reflecting city lights. Peter glanced at her as she entered. "Where were you?" he asked. "Out," she replied. He did not press. Olivia studied Emma briefly, perhaps sensing the shift that had taken place. Emma walked past them into the kitchen. She set her keys down deliberately. The condo still appeared intact furniture and place windows gleaming view unchanged. But the architecture of power inside it had shifted. Peter believed he was expanding his control. Olivia believed she was stepping into permanence. Emma knew she was nearing the moment when documentation would become action. And documentation once set in motion does not retreat. By the time April turned into May, Emma no longer needed instinct to confirm betrayal. She had numbers. Numbers were impartial. They did not blush. They did not deny. On a quiet Sunday morning, while Peter slept late after what he had described as a client dinner, Emma sat at the dining table with her laptop open and a legal pad beside it. Sunlight moved slowly across the hardwood floor. The condo was still. She logged into their joint checking account. The pattern she had suspected in March had now matured into clarity. There were the predictable expenses: utilities, groceries, the mortgage auto debit. Then there were the others. A $642 charge at a boutique hotel in La Jolla. 2 restaurant payments, both over $300 within hours of each other on the same weekend. A $1 180 charge labeled Coastal Serenity Spa Retreat. Emma clicked into each transaction, exporting the details into her spreadsheet. She had created columns: date, merchant amount, location, Peter's stated location notes. She filled them in carefully. April 12th, Ocean Crest Hotel, $642. San Diego claimed Denver. Airline record confirms CA. April 13th, Harbor and Vine Restaurant, $318. San Diego. Claimed conference dinner. The misalignment was consistent. Emma did not rush. She did not allow emotion to distort the process. Each entry was verified against at least 2 sources' bank statement and saved itinerary calendar entry and building access log. At the bottom of the spreadsheet, she inserted a running total: $7,984.36. In less than 3 months. Marital funds. She leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes briefly, not to grieve, but to calculate implications. Under Illinois law, misuse of marital assets in anticipation of separation could carry weight. Daniel Harper had mentioned the term dissipation of assets. Emma reopened her laptop and added a new folder: Financial Potential Dissipation. Inside it, she saved the spreadsheet and scanned copies of the corresponding statements. Upstairs, the shower turned on. Peter had begun sleeping in the master bedroom again. Olivia's presence no longer confined to the guest room. Emma had relocated to the second bedroom without announcement weeks earlier. The physical separation had occurred quietly, as most meaningful separations do. When Peter came downstairs dressed casually, he found Emma still at the table. "You working on a Sunday?" he asked. "Yes." He poured himself coffee and leaned against the counter. "You know," he began lightly, "this constant auditing vibe is exhausting." Emma looked up. "I'm reconciling accounts." "For what, for accuracy?" He smirked. "You're not my accountant." "No," she replied calmly. "I'm your wife." The word lingered longer than expected. Peter shifted uncomfortably. "You're making this adversarial," he said. "Doesn't have to be." Emma closed her laptop slowly. "Then align your statements with your actions." He frowned. "What does that even mean?" "It means," she said evenly, "if you say you're in Denver, your credit card should not show San Diego." Silence. Peter's face tightened, not in guilt, but in irritation at exposure. "You've been spying on me. I've been reviewing joint financial statements. That's invasive. It's legal." He set his coffee down harder than necessary. "You're blowing this out of proportion." Emma met his gaze steadily. "Numbers don't." He walked away without responding. Later that afternoon, Olivia arrived with shopping bags from a high-end boutique downtown. "I thought the guest room could use a few touches," she said brightly, moving toward the staircase. Emma observed the brand logos. Peter followed behind her, smiling faintly. "You're redecorating now?" Emma asked. Olivia paused halfway up the stairs. "Just making it comfortable," she replied. "For how long?" Emma asked softly. Peter intervened. "This is temporary." Temporary had become a permanent refrain. Emma did not argue. Instead, she retrieved her phone and photographed the shopping bags placed in the hallway, visible timestamps, visible surroundings. Upstairs, laughter resumed. Emma opened her laptop again. She added another column to her spreadsheet. Additional expenditures connected to Olivia's presence within the condo. There had been grocery spikes, utility increases, a furniture delivery charge. She downloaded the electricity usage report from the building's portal. Energy consumption had risen 18% over the past 2 months. Not dramatic, but measurable. That evening, Emma received an email notification from the property tax portal reminding her of the upcoming quarterly installment. She opened the statement. Owner Emma Brooks. Amount due $4,612. She scheduled payment from her personal account, the same inheritance-linked account used for HOA dues. Peter did not ask about property taxes. He had never asked. After payment confirmation arrived, Emma saved the receipt into her ownership folder. The contrast between financial responsibility and financial dissipation was no longer abstract. One sustained the asset. The other drained it. On Tuesday, she received another summary from Carol Whitman regarding building access logs, this time covering the past 60 days. Several late-night entries were logged under the second key fob Peter carried. One entry stood out April 17th, 2:08 a.m. Peter had told her that night he was flying out at dawn. The airport was 35 minutes away. Emma compared timestamps with a parking garage transaction charged at 5:22 a.m. near the airport. The gap was narrow. She added the data to her timeline document. Each detail tightened the narrative thread. By Wednesday, Daniel Harper emailed, requesting additional documentation regarding shared accounts and proof of separate funds origin. Emma responded with attachments already prepared. Within an hour, Daniel replied, "Your documentation is thorough. Continue preserving evidence. If there is any attempt to remove you from the property, contact me immediately." Emma read the sentence twice. Attempt to remove you. The phrase felt less hypothetical now. Peter had grown increasingly bold in his assumptions. That evening during dinner, Olivia presented the table for the first time. Peter spoke casually. "You know," he said, cutting into his steak, "we should talk about restructuring things." Emma folded her napkin carefully. What kind of restructuring living arrangements? It's not healthy for all of us to be under one roof like this. Olivia avoided eye contact, but did not contradict him. Emma's voice remained steady. Whose roof? Peter looked up sharply. Ours. Emma held his gaze. Define ours. He exhaled in frustration. You're being difficult. No, she said quietly. I'm being precise. Olivia shifted in her seat. Peter set down his fork. If this continues, he said, tone tightening, we may need you to find somewhere else temporarily. There it was. Not yet in order, but directionally clear. Emma did not flinch. Instead, she mentally noted the statement the witnesses present, the phrasing used. If that conversation happens, she replied calmly, it will involve documentation. Peter scoffed. It's just a condo. Emma stood carrying her plate to the sink. It's not, she said. Upstairs later, she updated her timeline. May 6th. Verbal suggestion of relocation. Present Peter Brooks, Olivia Grant. She underlined it once. Peter believed escalation would intimidate. Olivia believed proximity would legitimize. Emma believed in sequence. The financial evidence was nearly complete. The ownership documentation was airtight. The behavioral pattern was documented. What remained uncertain was timing. But timing, like numbers, could be calculated. Emma closed her laptop and turned off the lights. The condo stood silent around her windows, reflecting the city walls containing tension that had not yet broken. Peter thought he was maneuvering toward control. He did not realize he was stepping into documentation. And documentation, once assembled, does not lose. It waits. Daniel Harper's office did not resemble the dramatic courtrooms people imagined when they thought about legal battles. There were no raised voices, no echoing gavels. Just muted carpeting, framed diplomas, and shelves of case law arranged with quiet authority. Emma preferred it that way. On Thursday afternoon, she returned with an expanded folder, thicker, now heavier, not just with paper, but with pattern. Daniel gestured for her to sit. I've reviewed the documents you sent, he began. The deed is clean. The wire transfer is clearly traceable to inherited funds. That strengthens your position considerably. Emma nodded. And the joint account expenditures, she asked. Daniel folded his hands. If marital funds are being used to finance an extramarital relationship that may qualify as dissipation of assets. It won't undo the marriage, but it will matter in division. Emma absorbed this without visible reaction. What about access to the property, she asked. If he attempts to remove me, Daniel's expression sharpened slightly. He cannot lawfully evict you from property solely titled in your name, he said. Even within marriage. Particularly not through intimidation or third-party involvement. Third-party involvement. Olivia's face surfaced in Emma's mind, calculated, composed, increasingly comfortable inside the condo's walls. Daniel continued. If there is any attempt to remove your belongings, change locks, restrict access, call me immediately. We will respond with a cease and desist and, if necessary, file for injunctive relief. Emma noted the phrasing mentally. Injunctive relief. Paper responding to behavior. I want to be proactive, she said. Daniel inclined his head. Then we prepare. Over the next hour, they structured a plan. Step 1. Preserve all evidence, financial, digital, physical. Step 2. Avoid direct confrontation without documentation. Step 3. Draft a formal notice asserting sole ownership and warning against unlawful interference. Step 4. Prepare divorce filing should escalation occur. Emma did not flinch at the word divorce. She had already passed through the emotional terrain weeks earlier. What remained now was logistics. Do you anticipate immediate escalation? Daniel asked. Emma considered carefully. Yes, she said. Why, he's begun suggesting I relocate. Daniel's pen paused. That's significant, he said. Document every such statement. If he attempts to create a hostile environment to pressure you out, that strengthens your case. Emma left the office with more than reassurance. She left with framework. Back at the condo, the atmosphere had shifted subtly. Olivia's presence was no longer tentative. It was integrated. A throw blanket she had purchased now draped the living room sofa. A candle with a scent Emma did not recognize burned near the kitchen sink. Peter was on the balcony when Emma entered. "We need to talk," he said immediately. Emma set her keys down. "About what?" "About this tension. It's not sustainable." "Tension is measurable," she replied calmly. "What specifically concerns you?" He frowned at her phrasing. "You're documenting everything he said. You're turning normal marital issues into legal warfare." Emma removed her coat slowly. "Define normal." Peter exhaled sharply. "Bringing a colleague home, spending time together, reconsidering the relationship." "A colleague?" she asked evenly. Olivia stepped out onto the balcony then, as if summoned by implication. "We're not trying to hurt you," Olivia said softly. Emma looked at her. "Intent and impact are different." Peter shook his head. "This is exactly what I mean," he said. "You're cold. You analyze everything." "Yes," Emma said quietly. "I do." Silence expanded between them. Peter's tone hardened. "If this continues, it would be easier if you found another place for a while." There it was again, more direct now. Emma met his gaze. "Easier for whom? For everyone." "Whose name is on the deed?" she asked calmly. Peter's jaw tightened. "You're obsessed with paperwork. I'm aware of it." Olivia shifted uncomfortably. "It's not about paperwork," Peter insisted. "It's about space." Emma's voice remained level. "Then we can discuss space through appropriate channels." Peter laughed, short and incredulous. "Appropriate channels? This is our home." Emma held his gaze steadily. "No," she said quietly. "It is my property." The statement landed differently than anything she had said before. Peter stared at her, momentarily disoriented. "What, you never reviewed the deed?" Emma continued evenly. "I did." Olivia's eyes flickered. Peter's expression hardened. "Are you threatening me? I'm clarifying." He stepped closer. "You wouldn't actually do anything," he said. "You wouldn't drag this into court." Emma did not raise her voice. "If necessary," she replied, "I will respond legally." Peter scoffed. "You're bluffing." Emma said nothing. Bluffing requires uncertainty. She had none. That night, Emma updated Daniel via secure email. Subject: escalation, verbal request to vacate. She summarized the conversation factually without adjectives. Time, location, witness present. Daniel responded within the hour. "Do not vacate. Continue documenting. We will prepare a formal notice asserting sole ownership and warning against unlawful removal." Emma read the message twice. "Do not vacate." She did not intend to. The following afternoon, a package arrived addressed to Olivia Grant at Unit 18B. Emma accepted it from the concierge. "Is she moving in?" the concierge asked casually. Emma's expression did not change. "She is not an owner," she replied evenly. The concierge nodded, slightly embarrassed. Upstairs, Emma placed the package on the kitchen island. Olivia entered moments later. "Oh," she said lightly. "Thanks." Emma did not respond. Instead, she opened her laptop and logged into the HOA portal again. She reviewed the bylaws regarding occupancy and unauthorized tenants. Clause 4.3. Only registered owners or approved tenants under written lease agreement may reside in unit. There was no lease, no written authorization. Emma printed the clause and added it to her folder. She then drafted a formal written request to Peter effective immediately. No third party may reside in Unit 18B without written authorization from the titled owner. Emma Brooks. She left the note on the dining table. When Peter returned and read it, his reaction was immediate. "This is ridiculous," he said sharply. "It is documentation," she replied. "You're trying to push her out." "I'm enforcing property terms." Olivia stood near the staircase, silent. Peter crumpled the paper in his hand. "You're escalating this," he said. Emma's gaze remained steady. "No," she replied. "I am responding." The power dynamic had shifted not loudly, not dramatically, but structurally. Peter sensed it. He began pacing the living room. You think because your name is on some piece of paper that you can control everything, he demanded. Emma did not move. I don't need to control, she said quietly. I need to assert. Olivia's confidence seemed less stable now. You're making this hostile? Olivia said softly. Emma looked at her. Hostility is not created by documentation. Silence settled again. Peter's frustration grew visible, less confident now, more reactive. He had relied on assumption, on repetition, on the belief that Emma would retreat rather than formalize. He had underestimated her. Emma returned to her desk and opened her digital archive once more. She scanned the crumpled written notice Peter had thrown aside and uploaded it. Evidence of response. Evidence of resistance. The condo remained outwardly unchanged. Art still hung on walls. City lights still shimmered beyond glass. But beneath that stillness, escalation was no longer hypothetical. It was underway. Peter believed he could pressure. Olivia believed she could outlast. Emma believed in sequence. And sequence, once initiated, does not reverse. By the second week of May, Olivia Grant no longer entered the condominium as a guest. She entered as if she belonged. The distinction was subtle, but Emma noticed it in posture, in the way Olivia's keys no longer hesitated at the lock, in the way she walked directly to the kitchen without waiting to be acknowledged, in the way she began correcting minor things, rearranging glassware, adjusting the thermostat, replacing Emma's neutral-scented hand soap with something floral and sharp. Belonging is often rehearsed before it is earned. Emma observed without commentary. On Tuesday evening, she returned from work to find a new pair of women's shoes placed neatly beside the entryway bench heels in a color Emma would never wear. The sight was almost theatrical in its placement. Upstairs, voices drifted down the staircase. Peter and Olivia discussing a dinner reservation. Emma removed her coat slowly and photographed the shoes where they stood. Timestamp visible, hallway lighting consistent. She had learned not to document emotion, only facts. When Peter descended the stairs minutes later, he paused upon seeing her near the doorway. "You're home early," he said. "I live here," Emma replied evenly. His jaw tightened. Olivia followed him down, her expression carefully composed. "We were thinking of trying that new Italian place," Olivia said lightly. "Do you want to join?" It was the first time Olivia had addressed Emma in that tone, almost cordial, almost territorial. Emma met her gaze calmly. "No," she said, "but you may want to consider who is authorized to reside here overnight." Peter exhaled sharply. Not this again. Emma did not respond. Instead, she walked past them toward the kitchen counter where her phone lay charging. A notification had appeared from the building's resident portal earlier that afternoon. New access request submitted for Unit 18B. Emma opened it. Someone Peter likely had requested an additional key fob authorization. Requested for Olivia Grant. Emma's expression did not change. She opened the message fully and read the details. The request required approval from the registered owner. She declined it with a single click. Then she took a screenshot of the confirmation. Denied owner approval required. When Peter returned later that night alone, Olivia dropped off elsewhere. Emma was seated at the dining table with her laptop open. "You declined the access request," he said without greeting. "Yes, that was unnecessary. It was accurate. She needs access. She is not an owner or authorized tenant." Peter's voice sharpened. "You're being vindictive." Emma closed her laptop gently. "No," she said. "I am maintaining control over property that is legally mine." He stared at her. "You really think you can push her out like this? I think the bylaws are clear." Peter ran a hand through his hair, agitation replacing earlier confidence. "You're humiliating me." Emma considered that word. "Public humiliation," she said quietly, "is different from enforcing ownership." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "If you don't start cooperating, I'll make this very uncomfortable for you." Emma did not step back. "Define uncomfortable." Peter hesitated. "Living here," he said finally. "You don't have to make it this hard." Emma's gaze remained steady. "I am not the one introducing instability." Silence expanded between them. Upstairs, Olivia's laughter drifted faintly from a phone call. The sound felt less secure now, less anchored. Later that evening, Emma logged into the building security portal once more. She requested an extended access log summary covering 90 days instead of 30. The report arrived within hours. The data confirmed what she had already suspected. Repeated late-night entries under Peter's fob during dates he claimed to be traveling. Multiple entries corresponding to Olivia's visible presence. Patterns. Emma added the new report to her archive and updated her timeline document. She also drafted a concise memo summarizing occupancy violations under HOA rules. She cited Clause 4.3 again, attaching the printed copy. Not because she intended immediate confrontation, because preparedness removes hesitation. On Thursday morning, an unexpected development occurred. Emma received a call from Carol Whitman downstairs. Miss Brooks Carroll began carefully. "There's been an inquiry regarding adding another registered occupant to your unit." Emma remained calm. "And what did you tell them? That only the titled owner can authorize that change?" "Correct," Emma replied. Carol paused. "Everything all right?" "Yes," Emma said evenly. "Please direct any future requests regarding occupancy to me directly." "Of course," Carol responded. When Emma ended the call, she noted the interaction in her notebook. Building management inquiry re-additional occupant. Owner authority reaffirmed. The architecture of assumption was beginning to crack. That evening, Peter confronted her more openly. "This isn't sustainable," he said sharply. "You can't just override everything." "I am not overriding," Emma replied calmly. "I am asserting. You're weaponizing paperwork. Paperwork defines ownership." He paced the living room. "Olivia is staying here," he said finally. "With or without your permission." Emma regarded him without visible emotion. "If she stays without authorization," she said, "that constitutes unauthorized occupancy." Peter laughed bitterly. "You're going to call the police. I will respond through counsel." He stared at her. "You've already talked to a lawyer." It wasn't a question. Emma did not answer directly. Peter's expression darkened. "You've been planning this." "I've been documenting." "That's the same thing." "No." Emma replied softly. "Planning implies aggression. Documentation implies defense." Upstairs, Olivia descended slowly, sensing the shift in tone. "What's happening?" she asked. Peter gestured vaguely. "She thinks she can control everything because her name is on the deed." Olivia's eyes flickered briefly. "Is it?" she asked. Emma met her gaze. "Yes." Silence. Peter's jaw tightened. "That doesn't give you the right to push us out." Emma stood. "It gives me the right to protect my property." Olivia crossed her arms. "We're not doing anything illegal." Emma's voice remained level. "Unauthorized residency after written objection can become exactly that." Peter stepped forward again, frustration overtaking restraint. "You're bluffing." Emma did not respond. She simply turned and walked toward her desk. Moments later, the printer began to hum. She retrieved a single sheet of paper and placed it on the dining table. It was a formal notice drafted earlier with Daniel's guidance, asserting sole ownership, prohibiting unauthorized residency, and warning against removal of belongings or interference with access. Peter stared at it. "You're insane," he said. Emma looked at him calmly. "No," she replied, "I am prepared." Olivia's composure faltered for the first time. "This is extreme," she said quietly. Emma met her gaze. "So is assuming authority you do not have." The room fell silent. The city lights outside the windows shimmered indifferent to the tension inside. Peter believed escalation would force Emma to retreat. Olivia believed proximity equaled permanence. Emma believed in sequence. And the next sequence she knew would not be verbal. It would be visible, because pressure when applied carelessly often reveals weakness. And Peter was applying pressure without understanding what lay beneath. The ultimatum did not arrive as a scream. It arrived folded inside a sentence Peter had clearly rehearsed. Emma sensed it before he spoke. There was a stiffness to him that evening, a contained agitation. Olivia sat at the kitchen island, scrolling through her phone, unusually quiet, as if aware that something decisive was about to occur. Peter stood near the window, hands in his pockets, staring out at the river below. "We need to settle this," he said finally. Emma closed the book she had been reading and placed it on the coffee table. "Settle what?" "This living situation," he replied. "It's not working." "For whom?" she asked calmly. "For anyone," he snapped. "This constant tension, the documenting, the access restrictions." Emma regarded him evenly. "The access restrictions are consistent with ownership." He turned sharply. "Stop saying that like it's some magic word." "It's not magic," she said quietly. "It's legal." Olivia cleared her throat softly. "Peter," she said, almost cautioning. But Peter continued. "I've spoken to a realtor," he said. Emma did not react outwardly. For what purpose? To explore options. "Selling," she asked. "Maybe," he said. "Or refinancing. There are ways to restructure ownership." Emma folded her hands in her lap. "There is no joint ownership to restructure." Peter's jaw tightened. "That's not how marriage works." Emma held his gaze. "Marriage does not override recorded title." Silence. Peter stepped closer, lowering his voice as if proximity might grant authority. "You're going to make this ugly if you don't cooperate." Emma's tone remained steady. "Ugly is subjective." Olivia stood now, moving closer to Peter's side. "This doesn't have to escalate," she said. "Emma, we just need space." Emma looked at her directly. "Space does not require misrepresentation." Peter exhaled sharply. "Fine," he said. "Then here's the solution." He paused as if expecting resistance before he delivered it. "You should move out." The words hung in the air, deliberate and clear. Olivia's gaze flickered between them. Emma did not blink. "On what basis?" she asked. "On the basis that this is unbearable," Peter replied. "I'm asking you to leave." Emma's voice remained level. "Are you formally requesting that I vacate property titled solely in my name?" Peter stared at her, frustration rising. "Don't twist it. I'm clarifying." He stepped closer again. "I'm telling you, it would be easier for everyone if you packed your things and found somewhere else." Emma's eyes did not leave his. "And if I decline," Peter hesitated just a fraction of a second, "then I'll make other arrangements." Olivia shifted uneasily. "What kind of arrangements?" Emma asked softly. Peter's silence was answer enough. Emma rose slowly from the couch. She walked past them toward the hallway, her movements unhurried. In the second bedroom, she retrieved her phone and pressed record. Not hidden, not secretive. Visible. When she returned to the living room, she placed the phone face up on the console table. "I'd like you to repeat what you just said," she told Peter calmly. His expression hardened. "You're unbelievable." "Repeat it," she said evenly. Olivia crossed her arms. "This is extreme." Emma met her gaze briefly. "Precision prevents confusion." Peter ran a hand through his hair, then faced her directly. "Fine," he said. "I'm asking you to move out of this condo." "Which you believe you own?" Emma asked. "I live here," he shot back. That was not the question. His voice rose slightly. "Yes, I believe it's ours." Emma nodded once. "Thank you." She stopped the recording. Peter stared at her. "You think that helps you?" Emma did not answer, because she knew it did. Later that night, Peter escalated in a different way. He began opening drawers in the second bedroom, Emma's room, now pulling out clothing, setting items aside as if assessing volume. "What are you doing?" she asked from the doorway. "Seeing how much you'll need to take," he replied coldly. Emma stepped inside. "You will not touch my belongings." Peter laughed bitterly. "I'm trying to help." "With what?" "Your transition." Emma's expression remained composed. "There is no transition." Olivia appeared in the hallway behind him. "Peter," she said softly, uncertain. He ignored her. "You can't seriously expect to stay here while you what?" Emma asked quietly. Peter stopped. The truth hovered unspoken. Emma's voice did not waver. "If you attempt to remove my belongings," she said, "that will constitute unlawful interference." He stepped closer again, anger rising. "You and your legal threats." "Not threats," she corrected. "Statements." He stared at her, breathing unevenly. "You don't scare me. I'm not trying to. Silence stretched. Then Peter did something careless. He grabbed one of her suitcases from the closet and set it upright on the floor. "Start packing," he said. Olivia's eyes widened slightly. Emma did not move. Instead, she picked up her phone again and resumed recording. "Peter," she said calmly, "are you instructing me to remove my belongings from property titled solely in my name?" He hesitated. The hesitation was brief, but real. Olivia shifted again. "This is getting out of hand," she murmured. Peter exhaled sharply and kicked the suitcase lightly with his foot. "I'm done arguing," he said. "If you won't leave voluntarily, I'll make it clear you're not welcome." Emma's gaze hardened, not with rage, but with certainty. "Clarify," that she said softly. He met her eyes. "You're not welcome here." The words landed heavier than the suitcase. Emma ended the recording. Without another word, she walked past them into the kitchen. Peter stood in the hallway, breathing hard. Olivia watched Emma carefully now, less confident, more uncertain. Emma retrieved the printed formal notice from the dining table and slid it into a folder. Then she sent a brief email to Daniel Harper. Subject: escalation, direct demand to vacate, and threat of removal. She attached the audio file. Within minutes, Daniel replied, "Do not leave. Do not engage further. If there is any physical removal of belongings, call me immediately. Preserve all evidence." Emma closed her laptop. Upstairs, Peter's frustration simmered. He believed dominance would resolve the impasse. He believed pressure would force compliance. He did not understand that each escalation strengthened her position. Later that night, as the condo settled into uneasy quiet, Emma walked through each room slowly. She noted the placement of her belongings. She photographed the contents of her closet. She documented the condition of furniture. Not paranoia. Preparation. In the living room, the city lights reflected against the windows, as they always had. From the outside, nothing had changed. Inside, however, a threshold had been crossed. Peter had moved from implication to instruction, from suggestion to directive. And directives, when unsupported by authority, leave evidence. Emma stood by the window for a long moment. She was not afraid. She was not angry. She was ready, because she understood something Peter did not. An ultimatum, when issued without power, becomes self-incrimination. And Peter had just issued one. The lobby smelled faintly of polished marble and citrus cleaner. It was quiet that afternoon, midweek, just after 3. A few residents crossed the floor in low conversation. The concierge, Marcus Hale, stood behind the front desk reviewing a clipboard. Emma stepped out of the elevator with a single tote bag over her shoulder. She had gone upstairs earlier to retrieve a file from her desk. Peter had been home. Olivia, too. The tension had been dense enough to measure. What happened next unfolded with the kind of calm that precedes spectacle. Peter followed her into the hallway outside the unit. "I told you," he said, voice tight but controlled. "This isn't working." Emma held her keys loosely in her hand. "I'm aware. You're choosing to escalate. I'm choosing to remain." Olivia stood just inside the condo doorway, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Peter stepped past Emma into the bedroom she had been using. Emma did not follow immediately. She listened, closet door sliding open, hangers shifting, a suitcase being pulled from beneath the bed. Emma moved toward the doorway. "Do not touch my belongings," she said evenly. Peter ignored her. He began placing clothing into the suitcase, not folding, not organizing, just gathering. Olivia approached, hesitant. "Peter," she murmured. "Maybe no," he snapped quietly. "She wants documentation. Fine, let's document." He zipped the suitcase with abrupt finality and dragged it toward the hallway. Emma walked beside him without speaking. He moved quickly down the corridor into the elevator. Olivia followed silent now. Emma entered the elevator last. The descent felt longer than usual. Marcus looked up from the desk as the doors opened. "Afternoon," he said automatically. Peter stepped out first, pulling the suitcase behind him. Without hesitation, he rolled it across the lobby floor and stopped near the center of the marble tiles. Then, in one swift motion, he tipped it over. The latch snapped under the impact. The suitcase burst open. Clothes spilled across the polished floor blouses, folded slacks, a pair of black heels sliding several feet away. The sound echoed louder than it should have. Conversation in the lobby halted. Marcus straightened slowly. Emma stepped out of the elevator last. She did not rush forward. Olivia stood near the wall, her posture rigid. Peter looked at Emma, jaw set. "I'm done," he said clearly. "You don't live here anymore." The words were not shouted. They were worse. They were deliberate. A woman waiting for the elevator gasped softly. Marcus stepped forward slightly. "Sir," he began cautiously, "is everything all right?" Peter didn't look at him. "This is between us," he said. Emma bent down slowly and picked up one of her blouses from the floor. She folded it carefully, placed it back inside the damaged suitcase. She did not look at Peter. Olivia shifted uncomfortably. "You didn't have to do it like this," she whispered to him. He didn't respond. Instead, he addressed Emma again. "You've made this impossible," he said. "You want paperwork? Fine. This is me making it clear." Emma stood upright. "You are making something clear," she said quietly. Marcus cleared his throat. "Ma'am," he said gently to Emma, "do you need assistance?" Emma met his eyes. "No," she replied evenly. "But please note the time." Marcus glanced at the clock mounted behind him. 3:17 p.m. Emma nodded once. "Thank you." She crouched again, gathering her belongings one piece at a time. Peter crossed his arms. "You're really going to play the victim now?" he asked. Emma did not look at him. "I am recording the event," she said calmly. He scoffed. "You think that changes anything?" Emma zipped the broken suitcase as best she could and stood. "It changes everything." Olivia stepped closer to Peter, lowering her voice. "This isn't a good look," she murmured. Peter's jaw tightened. "It's my home," he insisted. Emma met his gaze for the first time since the suitcase had fallen. "No," she said softly. "It isn't." Silence settled heavily across the lobby. Marcus's posture had stiffened. Two residents lingered nearby, pretending not to watch. Emma turned slightly toward Marcus. "Please preserve the security footage from this time frame," she said evenly. "It may be needed." Marcus hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Peter laughed bitterly. "You're unbelievable." Emma adjusted the strap of her tote bag. "You authorized removal of my belongings from property titled solely in my name," she said calmly, "in front of witnesses." Peter's face flickered not with remorse, but with dawning uncertainty. Olivia looked at him sharply. "Titled solely," she whispered. Emma did not elaborate. Instead, she pulled her phone from her pocket and sent a single text. "To Daniel Harper, subject line not required. Message belongings removed to lobby. Witnesses present. 3:17 p.m. security cameras active." Within seconds, the reply appeared. "Preserve footage. Do not engage. We will respond immediately." Emma placed her phone back into her bag. Peter took a step closer. "You're twisting this," he said. "You were leaving anyway." "I was retrieving documents," she replied calmly. Olivia's composure had thinned. "Peter," she said quietly, "maybe we should go upstairs." He did not move. "This is ridiculous," he muttered. Emma lifted the damaged suitcase upright. The wheel wobbled. She did not ask for help. She turned toward the elevator. Marcus stepped forward slightly. "Ma'am, if you need to file a report, I will," Emma said. She pressed the elevator button. Peter watched her breathing unevenly. "You can't just hide behind legal technicalities," he called after her. Emma turned her head slightly. "It's not a technicality," she said. "It's ownership." The elevator doors opened. She stepped inside. Olivia remained frozen near the wall. Peter stood in the center of the lobby, arms crossed as if asserting dominance over space that no longer responded to him. The doors closed. Inside the elevator, Emma exhaled slowly. Not relief, calibration. She did not cry, she did not shake. She opened her phone and began typing a detailed account of the event while the memory was still precise. Time 3:17 p.m. Location lobby 18B building. Action suitcase removed and tipped. Statement, you don't live here anymore. Witnesses Marcus Hale concierge, 2 unidentified residents. She saved the note. When the elevator reached her floor, she stepped out and walked back toward the condo door. It was unlocked. Peter and Olivia had not returned yet. Emma entered calmly. The condo looked the same as it had that morning. Furniture intact, windows gleaming, but the line had been crossed. She walked to her desk and opened her laptop. She uploaded the written account, time-stamped. She backed up the audio recording from the night before. She saved the building access logs. Then she called Daniel. He did it, she said simply. Daniel's voice remained steady. That helps us. Emma stood by the window as he outlined the next steps. Formal notice demand letter, potential emergency filing if interference continued. Outside, the river moved steadily beneath the afternoon light. Inside, the balance of power had shifted irreversibly. Peter believed humiliation would force retreat. Instead, it had created evidence. And evidence once captured under bright lobby lights and silent cameras does not fade. It accumulates. The formal letter went out the next morning. Daniel Harper did not rush it. He structured it. On firm letterhead, precise and measured, the document outlined 3 undisputed facts. The condominium unit, legally designated as Unit 18B, was titled solely in the name of Emma Brooks. No third party had been granted written authorization to reside in the property. The removal and public displacement of Miss Brooks's personal belongings constituted unlawful interference with her possessory rights. The letter demanded immediate cessation of further interference, preservation of all electronic and security footage, and written confirmation that no additional attempts would be made to remove Emma or her belongings. It was not emotional. It was clinical. It was delivered by certified mail and email simultaneously. Emma watched the tracking notification update in real time. Delivered. 10:42 a.m. Peter was home when the email alert chimed on his phone. Emma was seated at the dining table when he opened it. She observed the sequence on his face: irritation, confusion, disbelief. Then the tightening. "What is this?" he demanded. Emma did not look up immediately. A response, she said evenly. He read the letter again, more slowly. "Unlawful interference," he repeated. "You're actually accusing me of something criminal. I'm asserting my rights." He threw the phone onto the table. "This is absurd." Olivia, standing near the kitchen counter, watched in silence. "You humiliated me in the lobby," Peter continued. "You made it into some spectacle." Emma met his gaze calmly. "You tipped the suitcase." He inhaled sharply. "You provoked me." "I retrieved documents." He paced the length of the living room. "This letter, this is you trying to intimidate me." "No," Emma replied. "It is documentation of fact." Olivia picked up the printed copy Daniel had couriered to the condo. She scanned it, lips tightening. "It says the deed is solely in your name," she said quietly. Emma nodded. "Yes." Olivia looked at Peter. "You told me it was joint." Peter's jaw clenched. "It is ours," he insisted. "She's twisting language." Emma did not interrupt because the document spoke without assistance. Olivia read further. "Preservation of evidence?" she murmured. "Security footage." She looked back at Peter. "There are cameras?" "Yes," Emma said calmly. "In the lobby." Silence. Peter's confidence wavered for the first time. "You're overreacting," he muttered. Emma's voice remained steady. "I asked the concierge to preserve footage." He stared at her. "You planned this. I documented." He ran a hand through his hair. "You're going to drag this into court, if necessary." Olivia set the letter down carefully. "This is escalating," she said. "It escalated when he tipped the suitcase," Emma replied quietly. Peter's breathing grew uneven. "You can't just push me out," he said. "I live here." "You reside here," Emma corrected. "Ownership is different." The distinction hung in the air. Peter had relied on proximity, on assumption, on the belief that assertion could substitute for authority. Now authority had responded in writing. Later that afternoon, Daniel called Emma directly. We're prepared to file an emergency petition if he attempts further interference, he said. Has there been any additional conduct? Not yet, Emma replied. Good. Maintain composure. Do not engage beyond necessary communication. Emma closed her eyes briefly. I won't. When she ended the call, she noticed Peter standing near the window again, staring at the river. You think you've won something, he said without turning. I'm not competing, Emma replied. He turned slowly. You've embarrassed me. In front of the building, in front of my firm. Emma held his gaze. You embarrassed yourself. The words were not sharp, they were factual. Olivia stepped forward cautiously. Maybe we should talk to a lawyer too, she suggested quietly. Peter looked at her sharply. For what? To understand where we stand. The phrase we stand carried weight. Peter's silence acknowledged it. Emma watched the realization move across Olivia's face, the recalibration of expectation. You told me this was temporary, Olivia said softly. It is, Peter insisted. Emma did not comment. Because temporary arrangements often collapse under documentation. That evening, another development occurred. An email arrived from the building's management office addressed to Emma Dear Miss Brooks. Per your request, lobby security footage from May 14, 3:45 p.m. has been preserved. Please advise if you require a copy for legal purposes. Emma read it once, then forwarded it to Daniel. Preserved. Peter noticed the notification flash briefly on her screen. What now, he asked. Footage secured, she replied. He exhaled sharply. This is insane. Emma stood. What is insane, she said quietly, is believing that humiliation has no consequence. Olivia shifted uncomfortably. You didn't have to throw the suitcase, she said to Peter, almost pleading. Peter snapped. She pushed me into a corner. Emma regarded him steadily. Corners are defined by walls, she said, not by documentation. The room fell silent again. Later that night, Peter attempted one final assertion. If you don't back off, he said, a voice low, I'll change the locks. Emma met his gaze without blinking. You will not. You can't stop me. Yes, she said calmly. I can. He hesitated. On what basis legal? The word no longer sounded abstract. It sounded inevitable. Peter turned away. He had believed control was maintained through volume, through presence, through confidence. He had not anticipated paper. Olivia stood near the staircase, uncertainty replacing earlier composure. Maybe we misjudged this, she murmured. Peter didn't respond. Emma walked toward her desk once more. She updated her timeline May 15th. Cease and desist delivered. Security footage preserved. Threat to change locks verbalized. Each line strengthened the narrative. Not for revenge, for protection. Outside, the city lights shimmered again against the glass. Inside, the illusion of ownership had begun to fracture. Peter believed escalation would intimidate. Instead, escalation had formalized. And formalization does not recede. It advances. The truth did not arrive as a confession. It arrived as a document. Daniel Harper filed the petition 3 days after the lobby incident. Not dramatic, not theatrical, but deliberate. Attached were certified copies of the deed wire transfer records tracing the down payment to Emma's inheritance account, HOA registration confirming sole ownership, and a sworn affidavit detailing the removal of her belongings. It was not an attack. It was clarification. The notice was served on a Monday morning. Peter opened the envelope standing at the kitchen counter. Emma watched from across the room. What is this? He asked, though he already knew. A filing, she replied evenly. He unfolded the pages, scanning rapidly at first, then more slowly, as the language sharpened into undeniable structure. Petitioner Emma Brooks. Respondent Peter Brooks. Relief sought injunctive order preventing unlawful removal or interference with sole property owner's possession. Peter's face paled slightly. You actually filed, he said. Yes, for what? To prove a point to protect my property. Olivia stepped closer, reading over his shoulder. Her expression shifted with each paragraph. It says the down payment came from inherited funds, she murmured. It did, Emma said. And the deed, Olivia continued, eyes scanning lists, only your name. Yes. Peter's jaw tightened. That's a technicality, he insisted. Daniel's language anticipated that argument. The petition cited state statute clarifying that property acquired through inheritance and titled solely in one spouse's name remains separate property, absent explicit commingling or retitling. There had been no retitling. Emma had never amended the deed. You knew, Peter said, turning toward her. You knew this whole time? Yes, she replied quietly. And you let me believe you, assumed Emma corrected gently. Silence expanded between them. For the first time since Olivia's presence had begun to solidify inside the condo, uncertainty replaced confidence. Olivia stepped back slightly. You told me it was joint, she said softly to Peter. It is joint, he snapped reflexively. Emma did not interrupt. She simply opened her laptop and turned the screen toward them. There it was, a scanned copy of the recorded deed from the county clerk's office. Official seal visible. Single name listed under owner, Emma Brooks. Olivia stared at the screen. Peter looked at it as if it were written in a language he refused to learn. You never asked to read it, Emma said calmly. I didn't need to, he shot back. Correct. The word was quiet, accurate. Peter paced the living room. You're weaponizing paperwork, he muttered. I'm using it as intended, Emma replied. The doorbell rang. All three froze. Emma walked to the door and opened it. A uniformed process server stood in the hallway. Peter Brooks, he asked. Peter stepped forward stiffly. Yes, you've been served. He accepted the envelope reluctantly. The hallway camera above the door recorded the exchange. Emma noticed. Peter closed the door slowly. This is insane, he said again. Olivia looked shaken now. This isn't just a letter, she whispered. It's court. Peter exhaled sharply. She won't go through with it. Emma met his gaze. I already have. Later that afternoon, Emma received confirmation from Daniel that a temporary order had been granted pending hearing. It prohibited Peter from removing Emma's belongings, changing locks, or interfering with her possession of the unit. She printed a copy and placed it on the kitchen island. Peter stared at it in disbelief. You went to court without telling me. I informed you through counsel. He looked at Olivia. She's trying to push us out. Emma shook her head slightly. I am preventing myself from being pushed out. The distinction mattered. Olivia's composure had eroded entirely now. Peter, she said quietly, did you know it was only in her name? He didn't answer. That silence was answer enough. For Olivia, proximity had felt like permanence. Peter had presented the condo as shared territory, shared authority. Now the illusion had been replaced with certified reality. I didn't think it mattered, Peter said finally. It matters, Emma replied softly. That evening, Emma took the next step. She contacted Carol Whitman downstairs. I'd like to update the building's access registry, she said evenly. Effective immediately, no additional key fobs are to be issued without my written authorization, and any non-registered occupant should be documented. Carol hesitated only briefly. As the sole owner, that's your right. Thank you. Within hours, a written confirmation arrived from management. Owner authority confirmed. Emma forwarded it to Daniel. Peter watched all of this unfold with mounting frustration. You're turning the building against me, he said. I am clarifying ownership. You're humiliating me. Emma held his gaze steadily. I have not raised my voice once. That was true. The humiliation he felt did not come from spectacle. It came from exposure. Olivia stood near the staircase, arms folded, no longer certain where she stood. I need to think, she said quietly. Peter turned toward her. What does that mean? It means, she replied carefully, I didn't realize the situation was this. Unstable. Unstable. The word lingered. Emma did not intervene, because instability had not been created by documentation. It had been revealed by it. That night, Olivia packed a small overnight bag. Just a few days, she said to Peter. He looked at her as though she were betraying him. You're leaving, I need space, she said. Space. The same word he had used against Emma. Emma stood by the window as Olivia walked toward the door. The hallway camera blinked quietly above. Peter remained in the center of the living room, stunned. "You're choosing paperwork over me," he said bitterly to Emma. Emma turned slightly. "No," she said softly. "I'm choosing reality." After the door closed, silence filled the condo. Peter walked to the kitchen island and stared at the court order again. He had believed control was something you asserted loudly. He had believed ownership could be spoken into existence. Now he faced a different architecture one. A build of recorded deeds, bank wires, affidavits, and preserved footage. "You planned this," he said quietly. "I prepared," Emma replied. He sank into a chair. "This isn't over." "No," Emma agreed. "It isn't." But the balance had shifted irrevocably. Peter no longer spoke as owner. He spoke as respondent. And in that distinction lay the beginning of consequence. The mediation was scheduled 2 weeks after the temporary order was granted. It took place not in a courtroom, but in a neutral conference suite. Downtown glass walls, long table. Filtered water pitchers placed deliberately within reach. No raised benches, no jury box. Just documents arranged in orderly stacks. Emma arrived 10 minutes early with Daniel Harper. She wore charcoal gray, structured, unadorned. Peter arrived separately. Olivia did not come. That absence said more than her presence ever had. Peter looked different, less certain, less expansive. His posture had narrowed. The past 2 weeks had required him to answer questions he had never expected to confront. Daniel placed a binder in front of Emma. Inside, chronological timeline, financial summaries, printed email previews, access logs, still images from the preserved lobby footage. The mediator, a woman in her late 50s with a voice trained in neutrality, began calmly. "We are here to address property rights and associated conduct," she said. "Let's proceed factually." Daniel spoke first. "Unit 18B is solely titled in my client's name. The down payment originated from inherited funds traceable through documented wire transfer. No retitling occurred. No written authorization was granted for third-party residency." He slid the certified deed across the table. Peter's attorney, retained hastily days earlier, reviewed it silently. "We are not disputing title at this time," the attorney said carefully. "At this time." Language mattered. Daniel nodded. "Then we address conduct." He pressed a button on a small laptop. The lobby footage appeared on the screen mounted at the far end of the conference room. Timestamp visible 3:17 p.m. The elevator doors opened. Peter emerged, pulling the suitcase. The tilt. The spill of clothing across marble. The mediator watched without expression. Peter's attorney shifted slightly in his chair. Daniel paused the video. At the moment, Peter said clearly, "You don't live here anymore." He replayed the audio. Once, twice. Then he closed the laptop. "The removal was intentional," Daniel said evenly. "Public, witnessed, recorded." Peter stared at the table. "That was an argument," he said finally. "An argument does not negate ownership," Daniel replied. The mediator interjected gently. "Mr. Brooks, were you aware that the property was solely titled in Miss Brooks's name?" Peter hesitated. "I didn't think it mattered," he said. "That was not the question," the mediator responded softly. He swallowed. "Yes," he said at last. "I knew her name was on it." Emma did not react outwardly, but inside, something settled with final clarity. The mediator nodded once. "Thank you," Daniel continued. "Additionally, we present documentation of potential dissipation of marital assets." He distributed copies of the spreadsheet. Emma had meticulously prepared dates, amounts, merchant names cross-referenced with stated travel locations. Peter's attorney scanned the pages. "These are allegations," he said. "They are documented expenditures," Daniel corrected calmly. Peter shifted in his seat. "You went through every charge," he muttered. "Yes," Emma said quietly. The mediator examined the totals. "Mr. Brooks, can you explain the pattern of these expenses?" Peter looked up, irritation flashing. They were business-related. Daniel slid forward to printed airline confirmations and hotel bookings, San Diego matching the dates. "Business in San Diego while claiming Denver," Daniel said evenly. Peter's attorney placed a hand lightly on his arm. "Answer carefully," he advised. Peter's composure fractured slightly. "It wasn't illegal," he said. "Misrepresentation of marital expenditures can carry consequence," Daniel replied. The room fell silent. Emma remained still. She had no need to interrupt. Evidence once displayed did not require embellishment. The mediator folded her hands. "Miss Brooks," she said gently, "what outcome are you seeking?" Emma met her gaze calmly. "Protection of my property, formal recognition of sole ownership, reimbursement of dissipated marital funds, and a structured separation. No anger, no theatrics." Peter looked at her as if seeing someone unfamiliar. "You're really doing this," he said quietly. Emma held his gaze. "Yes." The word was neither cruel nor triumphant. It was steady. The negotiation lasted hours. Terms were discussed, property division parameters, temporary occupancy arrangements, reimbursement schedule for documented expenditures. Peter's attorney pushed for compromise, suggested shared access, reduced repayment, delayed separation filing. Daniel countered with documentation. Each time Peter attempted to minimize the incident, the lobby footage stood silent but present in the binder. Each time he attempted to blur financial records, the spreadsheet aligned with receipts. By late afternoon, the shape of resolution emerged. Peter would vacate the condo within 30 days. Emma would retain sole ownership without contest. A structured repayment agreement would address documented dissipation of funds. Both parties would refrain from public defamation. The mediator read the summary aloud. Peter stared at the table. "This feels like punishment," he said. "It is consequence," Emma replied softly. He looked at her. "You could have just talked to me." "I did," she said. "You chose spectacle." The truth lingered in the space between them, because it was not the filing that had fractured the marriage. It was the moment in the lobby, the suitcase, the statement. "You don't live here anymore." The mediator concluded the session. "Documentation clarifies reality," she said. "This matter appears resolvable. Resolvable, not dramatic, not explosive, just structured." As they gathered their papers, Peter hesitated. "You're not even angry," he said quietly to Emma. She paused. "I was," she replied, "before the documentation." He searched her face for something: regret, hesitation, softness. He found none of those. He found composure. Outside the building, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the pavement. Emma stood beside Daniel briefly. "You handled that well," he said. "I prepared," she replied. Peter exited moments later alone. He did not look back. For the first time since Olivia had stepped into the condo, the power dynamic was unmistakable. Not because Emma had shouted, not because she had humiliated him in return, but because she had allowed paper to speak where emotion would have weakened. In the weeks that followed, Peter began packing, quietly, methodically. No more ultimatums. No more threats to change locks. Just the slow dismantling of assumption. And Emma watched, not vindictive, not celebratory, just certain. Because evidence had done what argument never could. It had replaced illusion with fact. Peter moved out on a Tuesday morning. There was no announcement, no final argument, no dramatic confrontation framed by raised voices or slammed doors. The moving truck arrived at 8:12 a.m., idling quietly in the loading zone beneath the building. Emma stood by the window in the living room and watched from above. The city moved as it always did. Cars inching forward, pedestrians crossing intersections, sunlight striking glass and steel. Nothing in the skyline indicated that a marriage was ending on the 18th floor. Peter's belongings were carried out in careful stages. Suits and garment bags, framed photographs, books he had once insisted on displaying prominently in the study. Olivia did not appear. She had not returned after mediation. Emma had not asked where she went. It no longer concerned her. Inside the condo, the rooms felt larger, already not emptier, but clearer. Objects that had once been crowded with tension now rested in stillness. Peter entered the living room one final time before leaving. Emma turned from the window and faced him. Neither of them spoke immediately. He looked older than he had a month ago. Not physically diminished, just stripped of certainty. "This is really it," he said. "Yes." He glanced around the space. "You're keeping it." "I am." He nodded slowly. "I thought it was ours," he said quietly. Emma considered the sentence. "You believed that," she replied. He hesitated. "Why didn't you correct me sooner?" Emma met his gaze evenly. "You never asked to read the deed." The truth was not sharp. It was calm. Peter exhaled. "I didn't think it mattered." It did. Silence stretched between them, not hostile, not warm, simply final. The movers called his name from the hallway. Peter adjusted the strap of his bag. "You won't regret this?" he asked. Emma did not answer immediately. "Regret implies doubt," she said softly. "I have documentation." He almost smiled at that, almost. Then he turned and walked out. The door closed without force. Emma stood in the quiet that followed. The condo did not echo. It did not mourn. It remained what it had always been, a structure defined by recorded title, reinforced by paper illuminated by steady afternoon light. Later that day, Daniel emailed confirmation of the finalized separation agreement. Peter had signed the structured repayment plan. The first installment toward reimbursing dissipated marital funds would transfer within 10 business days. Emma read the email once, then archived it. There was no surge of triumph, only completion. Over the next week, she made deliberate adjustments. The guest bedroom, no longer contested, was returned to neutral order. The throw blanket Olivia had draped over the sofa was folded and placed in a donation box. The floral candle was discarded without ceremony. Emma did not erase history. She restored structure. She replaced the abstract painting above the dining table with something quieter, a landscape her mother had once loved. Soft horizon, open sky. In the evenings, she sat by the window with a cup of tea and watched the river reflect city lights. The view had not changed, but the weight inside the room had. One afternoon, Marcus, the concierge, stopped her in the lobby. "Everything all right now?" he asked gently. "Yes," Emma replied. He hesitated. "I'm glad it resolved. It clarified," she said. He nodded as if understanding the distinction. Emma continued toward the elevator. Weeks passed. Peter's name was removed from the building's access registry. The second key fob was deactivated formally through management. The HOA account remained solely in Emma's name. Each administrative adjustment reinforced what had always been true. Ownership had never shifted. Assumption had. Occasionally, Emma would open her leather notebook, the one filled with dates and observations. She flipped through pages detailing public statements, financial discrepancies, timestamps from that afternoon in the lobby. She did not reread them for pain. She reread them for perspective. Because documentation had not only protected property, it had protected her composure. One evening, as summer light lingered longer over the water, Emma stood on the balcony alone. The air felt different without tension threading through it. She thought briefly of the moment when her suitcase had struck the marble floor, clothes spilling in front of witnesses. Peter's voice steady as he declared she did not live there. She had not argued. She had not shouted. She had not begged. She had recorded. And that difference had shaped everything that followed. Emma did not feel victorious. Victory implies opponent. What she felt was alignment, her name on the deed, her inheritance traced through wire confirmations, her composure preserved through escalation. The condo remained in her possession, not as a trophy, not as revenge, but as rightful structure. Several months later, she received confirmation that Peter's final repayment installment had cleared. She updated her records, closed the spreadsheet, archived the file. Then she closed the leather notebook for the last time and placed it in the fireproof lockbox. It was no longer necessary because the documentation had served its purpose. On a quiet Sunday morning, Sunlight filtered through the windows, illuminating the oak dining table Peter had once insisted on buying. Emma sat there with fresh coffee and opened a new notebook, blank pages. No timestamps, no evidence columns, just open space. Outside, the river moved steadily beneath the skyline. Inside, the condo held silence without tension. Emma Brooks had not raised her voice. She had not retaliated with spectacle. She had not humiliated in return. She had allowed fact to speak. And fact, when structured carefully, does not need volume. It endures. She stood and walked toward the balcony one final time that morning, resting her hands lightly on the railing. The city was loud, the river was steady, and the property beneath her feet quietly, undeniably, was hers. If this story stayed with you, take a moment to reflect on what truly holds power, volume, or documentation. Quiet strength rarely announces itself, but it changes outcomes. If you've ever faced a moment where dignity mattered more than reaction, I'd be honored to hear where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. Stories like this travel further than we think, and if you value calm justice, careful evidence, and resilience, without spectacle, consider subscribing, not for noise, but for truth that holds.